So JD has called out that certain Aquaman starlet's case, saying it needs to be dismissed, and it needs to be dismissed right now. The reasons behind this are sound, too, and you and I, we're going to talk about that today. Fun times, huh? Fun times indeed. Oh man, so hey there to all you fine folks on this fine day, by the way. I hope you are doing excellently. And this is how I imagine that certain Aquaman starlet feeling right now. The case that JD is taking aim at here, it's that certain Aquaman starlet's case. Not the case in Virginia, April 11, 2022, but the counterclaim. You know, the one that she says she deserves $100 million in. Why? Because he asked for $50 million. She deserves double that. Now, his call for summary judgment or the dismissal of her case really breaks down into three arguments. The first part is that certain Aquaman starlet has no evidence of direct liability. Basically, they can't prove that he did anything to their career whatsoever that caused any problems. Now, Warner Brothers added to this, absolutely obliterating any claim that she had by saying, number one, that they did delay on picking her up for Aquaman 2, but this was because of creative issues or creative concerns that they had with that person. They also stated, as far as any claims about money were concerned, that they absolutely were not going to pay that certain Aquaman starlet any more money for Aquaman 2, but here, in number 18, this is the clincher, quote, any delay in picking up that certain Aquaman starlet's options for Aquaman 2 was not due to that certain Aquaman starlet's dispute with JD or any of the allegations in his lawsuit. So, no damages done by JD whatsoever. Yeah, maybe, just maybe, she should take the L. No, not that L. Yeah, this one here. Take that L. Now, the second point here is a big one, too, because it talks about the big bad boogeyman, Adam Waldman, and the idea of actual malice, saying that certain Aquaman starlet cannot prove actual malice by Adam Waldman. Now, that is an important distinction, too, because in order for a public figure to claim defamation, actual malice has to exist, and the actual malice standard was built in New York Times Company versus Sullivan, in which the Supreme Court held that for a publicly known figure to succeed on a defamation claim, the public figure plaintiff must show that the false defaming statements were made with actual malice. Now, what they define actual malice as is making a defamatory statement, quote, with knowledge that it was false or with reckless disregard of whether it was false or not. Additionally, in order to prove actual malice, they have to do so by clear and convincing evidence rather than by the usual burden of proof in a civil case, which is the preponderance of evidence standard. So they have to go above and beyond. And third, and I think this is kind of funny to see here because the certain Aquaman starlet tried to claim this as well. In context, the counterclaim statements are protected opinion. Basically, we're talking about free speech here. Now, JD's team cohesively and very effectively brings all of this together in their opening arguments, noting that the certain Aquaman starlet's counterclaim is defective and that JD is entitled to summary judgment. Now, at issue, as they say, are three statements. That's all that remains in the counterclaim. She claimed bots, she claimed crimes, she claimed dozens and dozens of statements. Well, all that remain anymore are three statements. That's the only thing that you have left. Those three statements, they were made by one Adam Waldman. He is not a party in this lawsuit. That's why it says non-party there. JD is the party, and he didn't make these statements. He says that certain certain Aquaman starlet fails to state a valid claim against JD for at least 3 reasons because of that. First, no evidence, and this is true by the way, none whatsoever supports the idea that JD conspired with or directed Adam Waldman to make those statements. He was never telling him to do any of that. He did all of that on his own. So, that certain Aquaman starlet cannot establish that JD is directly liable. Second, and this goes to what we were talking about with actual malice, to the extent that certain Aquaman starlet seeks to hold JD vicariously liable for Adam Waldman's conduct, she must establish that Adam Waldman committed the tort of defamation. But that certain Aquaman starlet, a public figure, you notice they're hammering that idea that she is a public figure, cannot establish that Adam Waldman acted with actual malice. And that's true, by the way. Why did he go out? Why did he make these statements? Because he believed what he was saying. He provided a preponderance of evidence too. Heaps of that stuff. He would post all of it with what he was saying. So yeah, he wasn't going out and throwing out a false statement. He was going out and saying something that you, I, and many other people actually believe. Third, in context of what he said, the counterclaim statements are non-actionable opinions. Again, those things, they're protected by free speech. Now, JD's explanation of why this is free speech and it isn't defamation actually makes a lot of sense. In context, any reporter or reasonable reader would understand and expect a lawyer associated with JD to challenge that certain Aquaman starlet's version of inherent murky events of the party's marriage, just as that certain Aquaman starlet's lawyers challenged JD. The context necessarily negates any suggestion that the statements are properly understood as objective statements of fact that could be deemed defamatory. Mr. Waldman's opinions are not presented as definitive versions of events or as statements of a person that was there or, a witness in the area, but as mere advocacy. One side of a fiery, contested story as characterized by a lawyer where it is clear from context and the content of the statement that the facts are contested. So you understand, people contest that there. Mr. Waldman is never described as a fact witness with personal knowledge, but merely a lawyer, a partisan hired gun, expressing his opinion and evaluation about a he said, she said dispute. Ultimately, Mr. Waldman's statements reflect the existence of 2 completing narratives and are merely his subjective view and interpretation, a theory, conjecture, or surmise about events he never claimed to have witnessed. No reasonable reader would believe otherwise, especially as Mr. Waldman's statements are directly contradicted by that certain Aquaman starlet's lawyers in this same articles. Moreover, the recipients of his statements, whether reporters or readers, were necessarily informed of the existence of factual disputes, which negates defamation. So there you have it laid out. This is free speech. This is why it exists as free speech. You need to get rid of this, and you need to get rid of it all now, and I agree 100% with that.